dust on the Bible, and a picture on the wall. Granddad's hands, calloused and strong, built this life from almost nothing at all. Tilled the soil from sunup to sundown. Another generation on this sacred ground. Learn to read the seasons, the sky and the breeze. Put up our harvest and lived with ease. Now shadows stretch from distant towers. They talk of progress while our freedom it devours. Cause we keep our faith in God, guns and seeds. We the people will grow our needs and protect our dreams. I will never be a man on his knees unless in front of God. Respect to the fallen or to plant seeds. They print the money for their foreign wars, send our sons to die behind their closed doors. While back at home, the garden's overgrown with good food and futures we have sown. They want us weak, dependent and afraid, but the roots run deeper than the plans they've made. We keep our faith in God, guns and seeds. We the people will grow our needs and protect our dreams. I will never be a man on his knees unless in front of God. Respect to the fallen or to plant seeds. They call it a cycle, the rise and the fall, but I see a pattern standing through it all. The farmer, the father, the one who prepares while an empire crumbles from its own affairs. This ain't just history, it's a choice we gotta make for our children's future, for goodness sake. Keep our faith in God, guns and seeds. We keep the faith. We the people will grow our needs, and protect our dreams. I will never be a man on his knees unless in front of God. Respect to the fallen or to plant seeds. From the dust of the fields, a story told of hands that worked and hearts of gold. Generations deep on this sacred land, building a future hand in hand. My grandfather broke the soil, his back bent low, planted hope where only struggle would grow. He taught my father how to read the sky and trust the earth, not the politicians' lie. They watch from towers, plotting their next war, forgetting what our calloused hands are for. We keep our faith in God, guns and seeds. We the people will grow our needs and protect our dreams. I will never be a man on his knees unless in front of God, respect to the fallen, or to plant these seeds. Now the garden's my own, row straight and true, prepping for season, seeing the family through. They send their notices, they claim their rights, but can't take the spirit that burns in the nights. While they feast on chaos, we're mending the fence, living a life that just makes common sense. We keep our faith in God, guns and seeds. We the people will grow our needs and protect our dreams. I will never be a man on his knees unless in front of God, respect to the fallen, or to plant these seeds. I see the headlines, hear the patriot cries. Another young soul lost under foreign skies, for a cause that changes like the wind and the tide. While back at home, a part of our own freedom died. This ain't their game to play. This ain't their soul to sell. We keep our faith in God, guns and seeds. We the people will grow our needs and protect our dreams. I will never be a man on his knees unless in front of God, respect to the fallen, or to plant these seeds. We keep our faith in God, guns and seeds. We the people will grow our needs and protect our dreams. I will never be a man on his knees unless in front of God, respect to the fallen, or to plant these seeds. For the fallen and for the seeds, the cycle continues.
Please remember to sign up for our show notes. With Civilization Cycle podcast, you can learn what to expect as society resets. Agriculture, economy, tech, and history all have mappable cycles, and these cycles affect every aspect of our lives. We can navigate the chaos and thrive together with up-to-date news and information. Also, if you like the content we have here on Civilization Cycle, think about fueling the discussions and the show by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Civilization Cycle. And thank you for all the support.
Innovation through nature, Illuminated Digest balances and supports full, healthy gut microbiome, intestinal wall integrity, and normalizes blood viscosity. Because we hear an enormous amount about people having gut issues and digestive issues. I don't know if it's the modern diet or was what's been used in the agricultural process, but that gut biome is so important to our brain fog that we get and how much energy we have. And a lot of times if you got a lot of bad breath, it's because you got the wrong kind of bacteria that have overtaken the good bacteria in your stomach. It's time to rebalance that back out, especially right now when we might need to be changing our food choices because of all the disruptions that we're seeing across the planet agriculturally. Illuminated Digest, proprietary probiotic blends, enzymes, herbs, and fulvic minerals. Try Illuminated Digest and see how good you feel when your gut biome is in balance. I love the products at Alpha Vedic. You support them, they support us. It's a win-win-win for everybody. And see how much more energy you have after trying Illuminated Digest. That link's in the description box below. Feeling the heat, the exhaustion, the withering, being out in the heat. The summer returns once again. Time to rehydrate. We got hydration that works as hard as you do. Perform Light. Got sodium, potassium, magnesium, superfood recovery blend, vitamin C. And as Victory Nutrition International would say, recharge, replenish, recover faster. If you want to support this channel, support our advertisers. Fatigue-free summer. Stay hydrated. Perform Light. Click on that link in the description box below. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this beautiful blue planet. Did you like the music? Two versions of a similar song. I want to start this new style. So what did you like? Song A, song B? We just want to take the music right from the intro and bam, into the show. Trying to shift it a little bit more into just casual listening before we hit you with the thoughts. So let us know, what do you think about those music intro? We're going to throw the advertisements right into the center there, where we always do at the mid-hour break. But I want to take it from music, gentle listening. By the way, Ransom's going to be putting out the album here before the holidays. Got a whole playlist of songs created for the Civilization Cycle podcast. You'll be able to order that through his link that he's going to set up for you. Excuse me, had a little head cold from traveling in the aircon and was out at the beach and got all wet, and it's just like, whoa. So anyway, check that out for Ransom when it's coming up. Tonight we're going to talk about we knew AI was going to disrupt our future anyway. And of all things that you could have thought it would not disrupt would be fortune tellers. But the fortune tellers in Korea are almost completely out of business because people are now using AI for astrological, ancient text divination, ancient text transcribing, ancient text given to them in a way that even people who've been doing this for 40, 50 years can't tear all that material apart and put it together. So they're finding that fortune tellers are losing revenue share and nobody's going to them any longer. Blind fortune tellers is no less. Oh, you're putting that class out of business. But if it's really gone down to this part here, we know we're going to have a serious problem with the rest of it. Because even something so innocuous as blind fortune tellers in South Korea are now put out of business. I mean, AI is really sweeping through because people are getting these apps for free on the phone. They're getting all this at their fingertips for free. And they're like, why do I need to go there? Why do I need to spend the time, wait in line, go down? When I can just do this at home, type in a few things and even get better results. Because what I'm getting from AI is just a completely different level than human level of understanding the movements of the stars. And a lot of astrologers talk about the same thing on YouTube. You know, the Catch, Cook, and Clean channels went through a let's say, cleaning themselves on YouTube, where a lot of them were removed. The astrologers are saying something very similar, that they notice their view counts are going down, and they are attributing it to AI. People don't want to watch a 30-minute video when they could just go to AI and go, hey, AI, I'm a Sagittarius, I'm a Virgo, I'm a whatever, Leo. Tell me what my month's going to be like, based on Vedic astrology or based on whatever type of, Western astrology, however you like to use the planets there. And they can do something in seconds and just read through that in minutes versus watching a 30-minute video. So even the astrology channels and the tarot channels are talking about some of the same things. They're just, the traffic's just dropping off a cliff because people are moving to AI. So you got to think about others. Where was this going to hit on what type of content? Could you make a prompt that says, hey, take me through all the 25 strangest news stories of the week and make it and coagulate it like David at Ransom would do and format me, 12 paragraphs on how this, maybe. But we're humans. Excuse me, we're humans looking at a certain different variant of how life is going to be. Also today, we're going to look at the U.S. debt clock. We are at right now 39,900 billion and 907 billion, excuse me. So even by the end of the show, we'll be at 908 billion. So you got to think within a day or two, we're going to go for 40 trillion. And that, I have some slides that I sent over to Ransom. We so jumped the shark. Like, we can't even pay the interest and our military. We've gone so far beyond being able to afford anything. So the only possible way is to deconstruct the current economy and reload it in as something new. Stablecoin issuance, so the rest of the world wants our dollars. And then the stablecoin issuers in America have to hold US bonds, treasury bonds, to be able to issue stablecoins. But then the stablecoin around the rest of the world. But then you have one side of the aisle that's trying to stop that to prevent the president from moving forward. And we just keep falling further and further behind. As I sit out here in Asia and watch other nations just leapfrog ahead of us. So we're going to be playing catch up with this whole trying to stabilize our debt by using stable coins. We're going to be about third or fourth in line. There's already a few others ahead of us. So yeah, I saw that bond yield that be in crypto. That's actually a really good website if anybody likes to read more in-depth crypto stories versus just the quick headline and a one paragraph summary like a lot of them do. If you want to go deeper in, and there's a few other ones on the net too. I'll have to dig one up while Ransom comes up. But you could see the war's off again for a minute because they needed to get a new authorization. At the same time, the changeover of the economy is just it's not stalling. And as we come into these elections here, if you're in America, if things flip over and we get just a completely locked up everything in Congress, government, House, whatever it is, we're going to sit in this like boiling pot of nothingness for another year and a half as the rest of the world runs ahead of us on most tech, most cryptocurrency, most gold-backed currencies, as China and the rest of the world setting up a new gold repository in every single continent across the planet. Like, we are playing catch up here because of this ridiculous politics that's occurring. It's almost asinine and sickening to watch it as they're willing to sacrifice an entire country and you and our kids and our grandkids' possibility to have anything of comfort in this lifetime and next lifetimes for a little bit of tit for tat right this second. It's actually unfathomable for me to look at this in sort of a common sense way. Like, why would they do such a thing unless it's a plan to take us over the edge of never coming back and shifting the global reserve currency to elsewhere, or to make it a one global reserve currency, as in one world currency controlled by Bank for International Settlements, controlling the stablecoin issuance, controlled by baskets of currency and, let's say, assets throughout the different continents. That would make more sense for me. So we're being liquidated on purpose, and if you can't see it, it's all happening in real time. So Ransom, welcome to the show. Oh, I did want to say one last thing. SpaceX, my call was good. It ran up, it hit the peak, dropped completely down, but I said look around August 11th that when 25% of the stock got released back to the public, that it would probably drop in price. It didn't. It went the opposite. It went right back up in price. So 2 good calls, 1 bad call. So hey, man, that's just, looking at the markets. And Ransom would have said something different, and that's good. He's got the edge over there. He's like, no, dude, that's going up after that's going up. And I was like, no, it's going down. It's going down. And we had that.
Actually, the peak I'm expecting is in a few years when the general public starts realizing SpaceX's plans for 27, 28, 29. Weirdly, there's not too many, announced for after 2030, but they do have a lot planned, including supposedly catching the window to go to Mars. He's been bragging about that for years. So that window's coming up where Earth and Mars will be close enough together where they could launch one of their whatever they're sending out there to supposedly just start the chain reaction of building on Mars, the moon, etc. People don't believe it's going to happen. There's people that don't even believe space is real. And, I can't blame them when down here on the Earth, we're debating the $20 burritos,
But I might say rebuilding on Mars. If you believe the ancient tales that it was once inhabited and the atmosphere was ripped off due to cataclysms.
Right. Yeah, who knows, man, because we do know. I know a lot about the geology of Mars. I don't know about any supposed except for the one story in the what is that? The Book of Inky, I guess it is. But that's retranslated by Zachariah Sitchin, and according to that story, one of the first Anunnaki that came to Earth ended up dying there on Mars, and they made a little shrine. So, that maybe that fits in with the face or whatever. But besides that, something did happen that we know catastrophically that ripped the crust up. And that's why there's so many bizarre magnetic anomalies on Mars, because it seems like a major portion of the crust was just removed and thrown on the other side of the planet.
And that tends to be part of the asteroid belt, at least the way it was framed, as that got ripped off and it turned into what we know classically now as the asteroid belt. So part of a planet deposited in orbit outside its orbit. What would you call that?
I don't know, man.
At least I don't want to be during that time is what I would call that.
There's a lot of growing theories that the panspermia event on Earth actually probably came from Mars, because Mars's conditions at that time versus early Earth conditions, that it seems more reasonable that there was life already going and it got transferred in that event over to our planet.
And here we are with the $20 burrito after all the cataclysms. So wind us back to a $20 burrito. It's not the $20 burrito, Ransom. It's the $40 trillion debt that's not ceasing. It's actually speeding up.
Right.
So as we roll into next month, it's going to be 41 trillion already. It's going up at about, that's not exactly correct at $1 trillion a month. It's about 750 billion a month now. So within a month and say, 5 weeks or, 4 to 5 weeks to 5.5 weeks, we got to add another trillion. I mean, just after the next whole year, that's adding another 5 trillion. We're going to be up at 45 trillion plus by the end of let's say a year from now. And then what will a burrito cost? If a burrito costs $20, and we didn't come into the bad harvest, add all that in yet. If it's $20 for a burrito at 40 trillion, at 45 trillion, just do the basic math. What's your burrito going to cost you?
It may be costing in the foreseeable future, upwards of $20, and it might even go up. And this is where people start whining about things in their life and realize that the nation that you live in, sometimes does extra national police actions that causes price to go up. So you can talk about Iran and all of those closed ports and byways for transit for trade being shut off. But then there's stuff, right back over here in the Americas where we play around with the cartels, and then the cartels, like I've been telling you guys for a long time, they want these fields of food. They want to control the food, and that's what's happening. They want control of it.
Right there, avocado situation in, how do you say that?
Michoacan? I don't know, man.
Oh, Michoacan.
Michoacan? I don't know how you say that. Something like that. 1,500 troops to the western state of that word I can't pronounce there, including halting avocado inspections required for export because of non-specific threats to U.S. interests. In other words, the new Jalisco cartel is taking over the breadbasket of Mexico, And the United States doesn't really want everyone to know that because we have a lot of actions going on. And weirdly, there's a lot of those people that believe in conspiracy theories like earthquake guns and things like that. And weirdly, just those states that we might need to fold over for this new transition into a different global environment, like Brazil and Colombia, Venezuela, they're all having these issues right now, including major earthquakes, which America, might be soon experiencing too. And then talk about a $20 burrito when a 7.4 or 8 goes off in San Francisco Bay or, San Diego, or even north of that in the Ring of Fire, since everything else seems to be, aggravated at this time. It seems like Earth's belly is, upset right now.
Yeah, I was looking for a post I'd put up on my Patreon channel here. I got to dig down in the post here. Let me find it. Oh, here it is. The 1811, 1812 earthquake cluster, Madrid, Venezuela, California. Now, after the Venezuela earthquake, I'd noticed that, I looked back, I said, when was the last time that Venezuela had a big earthquake like that? And the last time was 1811. And then we start to look at the New Madrid earthquake. So I'm just going to run some earthquake facts through you quick. The New Madrid earthquake, which is central U.S. in Missouri, and it runs all along the Mississippi River, the first shock was December 16th, 1811, and it was an 8.2. And then there was another subsequent second and third shock on January 23rd, which was an 8.0, and then February 2nd, 1812, to 7.7 or higher. They don't exactly know what it was. But if you go back down and take a look at what happened, Caracas also had a large earthquake on March 12th, 1812, 7.7, and then that moved around to the 1812 California earthquake at a 7.5. So I don't know if it's a distribution of, locking and unlocking of the places that makes this circle around, but it seems like Venezuela, so we can quantify currently, it's gone from Venezuela to Colombia to Mexico, it's gone up to California. Now, where does it go next? Because if it follows the same pattern here, I'm absolutely saying it's coming to the New Madrid fault area. And you could do your own study and see what, there was with the 7.2, the same pattern in 1812, and then what's coming for New Madrid. Because I don't know if it was you that told me they had their home insurance canceled just recently in the New Madrid area, and they're living in Missouri. I can't remember if it was you who told me that, that you knew somebody, but I got a message that said that they had their home insurance canceled for earthquake in New Madrid area.
Muted. I was saying I was looking for this article. Oh, now you're muted. Let's see, what the hell?
To cancel home insurance, then what?
I don't know. That we just had a technical thing. I had myself muted, and then somehow you got muted when you were saying that. Now, what were you saying about home insurance?
No, nothing. That the cycle seems to be the same. That's the 1811, 1812 pattern from Venezuela to Colombia, up into Mexico, up into California. And we've already traversed, half of that crescent moon now. And it seems whatever plate pressures we're pushing over might signal or trip something off the New Madrid fault zone, like this year or next. And then suddenly there's carriers and insurance out there that's not insuring homes, and they just set notices, we're not going to give you earthquake insurance any longer, in Missouri specifically. And I was saying, was it you that gave me that message, or did I read that just the other day from somebody who sent me a message?
Well,
My brain's been foggy the last few days.
Yeah, I don't think it was me. However, we've covered in the past plenty of articles about people getting their insurance canceled when they live in a high-risk area, like for fire or flooding, seemingly right before a storm or a fire. I don't know how they would know that, but because it's high-risk area and they're tired of paying out each time there's a disaster, so they don't want to pay that. Like where I live right now, I doubt that I could get flood insurance because they know every once in 100 years there'll be a really bad monsoon storm over a city that will just float all the houses and the trailers away. I've seen it on, thankfully not here, but in Roswell and all over the state of New Mexico. I've seen that over and over again, where areas just get flooded out in flash floods. But what I was saying when I was muted is, there's all this super scientific interest in these subterranean vaults of water inside the earth. And they're talking about, they once thought that life sustaining oxygen existed only near Earth's surface. And then they, detected it deep underground. There's all of these caverns. And, we're always talking about continuity of government. We historically, different peoples hiding underground, mythological underground cities and folklores. But then you see stuff like this, and we know that there's a bunch of water down there, and not only that, this dark oxygen. It's because we don't know about it. And then
I didn't want to make a mistake with the chemical composition of limestone, because to break that down in there. Yeah, it's MgCO3. So if you were to strip off an oxygen atom off of there, or even two, you'd have oxygen, right? And if you left it with CaCO1, that'd be an ionized one, then and also then there's magnesium carbon, trioxide. So MgCO3, if you were to strip that off, ionized into MgCO1, and then strip that O2 out of there, you could easily get oxygen. Or even if you stripped one atom off the calcium and one atom off the magnesium CO3 and one atom off the calcium CO3, you could combine those two to have calcium CO2 possible. And then you would free up those oxygens to be able to have oxygen. In what you're talking about is, it doesn't really take rocket science to understand that you could strip those off under chemical and pressure, and you could have that free-floating oxygen isotope down there, could you not? So if they're talking about depth and pressure, and by the way, if anybody doesn't know, there's 3 times more water under the Earth's crust than there is above our crust. Like all the rivers, lakes, and oceans that you know of is like vast. It is vast. Under the Earth's surface, there's 3 times more water. That's why they talked in Noah's flood. That water is just like jetting out of the planet, like literally thousands of foot geysers, a mile wide on a 1,000-foot geyser, like could be millions of those across the planet, which are occurring simultaneously, where at least a large portion of the underground locked water came to the surface in an event. Was that geomagnetic or was it tectonic? Not sure. But something caused that underground water to, under pressure, come to the surface. It wasn't 40 days and 40 nights of rain specifically. It was all that above or underground water that came to the surface, as well as the above ground water. The only thing I can make out of that is some sort of cloud event that came in electromagnetically that locked in place, that people had seen was coming, and then it disturbed and caused massive evaporation, or some cloud layer, and had like descended onto the surface, and beneath water sources also unlocked. And for me, that's not just like one casual event. That would definitely be on a planetary and also solar system wide. So I'm wondering what happened on other planets at the same time that Noah's flood occurred, because that is electromagnetic, sun-driven catastrophism. And nobody wants to talk about that, and I don't know why, because it seems like it's a recurring cycle. So,
I always thought that Noah thing pretty well describes what would be happening as the oceans rose above their previous levels, because we know the earth it's porous. It's like a sponge. So all those empty caverns and things like that would be filling up with water. And then when the pressure built up and the sea level was above the ground level water, it would just shoot out like geysers everywhere. Yeah. People that thought they were on dry land would just start to be submerged underwater from inside the land, and then a massive amount of water coming in from the coastal areas as well. So, there's a lot of story too, like the origin of the Slavs supposedly had this whole land to the north of Europe there that just sank and disappeared. And that's why they were wandering around Europe without lands. And then you think about these things, now they're kind of, I found this quite interesting because, from Hunga Tunga to volcanic eruptions like the worst year to be alive and things like that, you have this real climate change due to the sun being blocked out. And unlike, other theories that involve different levels of chemical variations or percentages in the atmosphere, we know one thing for sure causes climate change and mass devastation, and that's when the sun's energy and light is interrupted for long periods of time. Now, isn't it weird that you have all these weird greenies running around, getting caught, starting fires all over the place that basically make monster clouds equivalent to blocking out the sun, as, natural cloud cover would also do, not CO2, as this title here says. Another new study links climate change to natural cloud cover changes, not CO2. Well, duh. You know what I mean? That's one of those obvious, well, the sun drives climate, and if the sun is blocked, or we get into a they're always trying to make you think that there's going to be this greenhouse effect, but what really happens is we freeze eventually.
Yeah, scroll down in the article there. And, again, I would ask, just Ransom, I'm going to pose the question to you. Yeah, I'm curious what they would have down here as graphic. Oh, just one graphic on that. Earth's dimming mirror,
yeah.
Cloud contraction, and the rise of albedo governance. Okay. Now, albedo effect can be done by anything. So think about all the SpaceX rocket launches that are up there. All that small particulate. I know it's not, one launch does not build Rome in a day, but multiple thousands and millions of launches and millions of burning up satellites coming back in orbit do. Right? Nobody even talks about that at all. Where's that at? Where's that at? No. All of these, then you got about the war and the oil fire. So I would just add, now with that previous headline there, Ransom, I'm going to read a question, right? A statement more or less. Media does not report news that conditions the public for what is next. So what is next for this particular article that they're telling you? Is it going to be a shift in CO2 narrative? Because I'm seeing a lot of shifting going on with Bill Gates, especially like, oh, the earth will balance itself. It's not existential anymore because we need data centers. So it'll all balance out. It's good. Have you noticed the change?
Yeah, I have. And now they're trying to, slowly make you forget that if there were any changes to the sun, it might have something to do with these billionaires spraying out different, concoctions of theirs, trying to literally, in their words, dim the sun. So they themselves are admitting that the sun drives the climate just by having the program to try to dim the sun. I mean, think about it. Yeah. Just by having the program admits that it's the sun that's driving the climate. Otherwise, you wouldn't be trying to dim said sun with various different spraying programs. And then, when the guy's also the guy that makes computers and viruses, maybe, and real viruses, maybe, you got to wonder what what did they spray? What other clandestine project was like layered up with those programs?
Yeah, think about the things that have gone into the atmosphere in the last 50 years. And again, I would ask you with a straight face and common sense, if you were invading a planet, would you not cut off the food source first? Because, we know how sieges worked through history, just like rope off the place, no food or water in, contaminate the water, contaminate the food, or allow no food in and contaminate the water. People eventually get sick. So, the chemicals in our food that have been allowed to go through, that so many of them are not allowed in many, many nations because detrimental to our health, still allowed in many nations like the United States. But I look at this as just, if I was going to invade a nation, and now think on a planetary scale, if you're going to invade a planet and you have 200 years to do it, or 100 years, what would you do? Well, think about the last 50, because my grandparents' era was the kind of the last one that had the purest, cleanest food. Now, my parents had pretty clean food. They grew up in the 50s, 60s, and they tell a story of, there started to be some DDT scares and this kind of stuff and dioxins, and this whole thing kind of started right then. So I would put that as kind of the demarcation point of about, 1950s is really when we started to get into heavy toxins and awareness of pollution coming on the planet here. So that last, 85 years or 86 years. Or sorry, 75. I can't do the math. 50 plus 20 is So think about 75 years of pollution. So if you were going to invade a planet and had a 100-year plan to invade and take over a planet, what would you do? I would do pretty much the same thing, because I can't believe that they allow certain things to be sprayed on our crops that are known toxins, and allowed it in the food supply, things that are known toxins. I mean, it's just really is really unthinkable how they allow so many things into the public domain unless it has already been a captured planetary government system, and now it is trying to weaken the standing army of humans that would resist. I don't care what language you speak, what religion you are, what socioeconomic class. Aliens come pouring out of the skies, that's all going to disappear. And we're all going to start going, that's a problem. We can worry about our little petty differences later, but we need to get rid of them first. Like, that would unite humanity. And then if you're sick and weak, it's not going to be very much of an effort now, is it? So how long would it take, though, to demoralize, dehumanize, I wouldn't say devitaminize, but how, de-healthize an entire society and civilization, and get them dependent on a system that could be turned off in a second and everybody would pretty much disappear. 90% of the world's population would within a year if you just turn off the system they become accustomed to through the education system, to get them to stray away from and get the convenience at a level where they depended on the convenience. And it was, you look at all these interwoven systems, different narratives that have been given to us, different ways to live in society and societal norms that are pushed on us and popular programming to move us in a certain direction, to now we are literally helpless, being covered in poisons. And then somehow, then now they're talking about, the CO2 narrative's broken. Like, there's a shift here happening, folks. If you can't see it, I'm just kind of pointing it out in my own twisted way here.
Right. And then you're talking about, from the sky to the ground, the pollutants. And how many generations is that since the silent and the great generations? You got the boomers, you got Gen X, you got the millennials, then Z, and then Alpha. So not too many generations there, a complete changeover. And the people that were like Gen X and the boomers were the first two generations to start eating completely modified food from its original format. I mean, so the boomers and the great generation, most of them, all their genetics had already been, pronounced and developed in their lifetime before that even came around. But as far as Gen X and then the millennials, Alpha, you start seeing these societal problems. And, it goes back to here. World War II motorcycle and soldier emerged from river muck and hungry. How long have we been polluting the top layer soil and then just burying over it? I mean, think about all the chemicals, all of the, enriched products that they were created in World War II to fight each other. And not even World War II, but World War I, when they first started using the chemical and biological attacks on each other. And then you just got layers and layers of that. And then we go into the Vietnam era, spraying Agent Orange everywhere, which is essentially Monsanto glyphosate. And then you could skip forward to this.
Okay. Wait, can you go back? And I'd love to see that, I want to talk about the Danube thing. Can you go down in the article a little bit? I'm curious what other images they have, because this is the Hunger Stones. This is the same Hunger Stones area. So what you're talking about with the motorcycle, and I saw some great ones. Maybe I can send you some photos. I got some of ships. I think I even have them on this desktop here.
Looks like just
ships from World War II that are emerging out of the waters because it's drying out. But remember, the Hunger Stones is the biggest one that a lot of people might know. Is when it got to this drought level, and people will do this today too. When it gets to the very bottom, before it starts to rain, they will carve in a line and they'll say 2026. And originally, before they had like waterworks projects and dams and this sort of thing, when it would emerge, they would there's a famine happening right now on these things. That's why they called them the Hunger Stones.
Right.
And they left messages for us in the future. Like when these rocks were, out of the water again, cry. That was one of the messages. When you see this stone, cry.
Yeah. This
famines begin. Like they wrote all these things on these rocks. Like, dude, when the water goes this low, you are going to not be able to grow food. And that's the whole thing about these Hunger Stones. And there's quite a few around in different river basins around in Europe, more than America for sure.
Right.
But Danube is a very famous instance of the Hunger Stones. So let me see if I can pull some up. some classical ones. You know, there's a few of them around. Let me see, Ransom, if I can.
Cool.
You keep commenting here, and I'll do the hunger stones.
Well, if you look at
done lots
it,
of videos on this.
they only got 2 images on this one. It's like some dog tags and stuff, and you know the message sent forward to the future on this one was we must kill everyone. Because that's what they were doing. That's what's buried there, you know, to just dig that back up. And you know, while you find them pictures, I was about to link it to today's headlines. You know, that super big oil spill, like you were talking about. Where's all the greenies? There's mines floating around all over the place. Here, let me turn this off for you.
Yeah, so let me share this one image with you before we move on here. Just this one here, Danube hunger stones. You'll see what I mean. So throughout history, anytime that these particular large rocks, not ones that are going to be moved by a flood, although if the flood was large enough, they would move, but at least in the last 500-600 years, these are large enough they haven't moved. Once these are, you know, down to the water level again, and water level drops below, and you see that there's different marks for different times, like 1661, you know, and these are literally demarcated in time. Was that 1551? In the back, 1616. Elbe River, there's another famous one. Like these hunger stones are all over Europe. Like when you see me cry is sort of a famous saying that they would find in this. So they're all across Europe. And I encourage you to look at this. They're all focused on like a German World War II motorcycle and a German World War II ship. Okay, I get it. But what they're not really reporting on is like these things are just normal across Europe and most rivers. And we're back at that low water level and we're coming into crop losses across the planet like we haven't seen in 75 to 100 years. We're literally going into something on a once in a century low in crop production this year. That should be the story about these low water levels. And I agree, a German motorcycle is cool and we can look at it and everything, but you know, coming back in, the real what they and you know, this podcast I put up just yesterday, me Ransom talking about, they try to avoid these very intense societal issues that might cause panic, because if enough people wake up and go, you know what? Hey, that's right. Why aren't they talking about the stones? They're talking about a German World War II ship. I think irrigating our crops is way more important. And I want to look at the implications of not enough water on the crops for the year. Like what's happened with German grain production? Oh, down 25%. What's happened with French grain production? Wheat down 27%. And that's from the EU itself talking about. So, you know, they haven't even come into the harvest yet. They're just beginning here. Diesel's short. It's like $10 a gallon for diesel. Going to drive up the cost. No natural gas to dry it if it was not even going to be dry in the fields because they got a drought going on everywhere. But heaven forbid it rained. They'd have to put it through a dehydrator. You know, you got to run it through. Their gas right now is some of the lowest it's ever been. They don't know if they'll have enough natural gas to get through the winter in Germany before people will freeze in their homes. Like this is the kind of level of insanity it is in Europe. So instead of talking about a German World War II ship, why don't we talk about just European grains in general, not excluding Ukraine, which is going to be down some like 60+%, probably more by the time it comes in. Yeah, it's just we should be talking about the grains, not ships, you know? But nobody wants to touch the grain thing with a 10-foot pole because it means that we need to look at reality in the face then. What's going to happen? And nobody wants to do that. It's too inconvenient. It might cause societal chaos. You know what I mean? Like these are the conversations we want to have on the program, which a lot of mainstream media wants to have, and rightly so. Ransom pointed that out on the last podcast. I just put that up over on the Adapt 2030 channel. That we try to cover these issues that, you know, other podcasters and newscasts just obfuscate and go past because it's too sticky of an issue, because it's going to cause too many problems if too many people become aware. So they dish it out as these things come. It's never preparatory. Like we see this giant problem coming. Can you get ready a little bit? No, just wait until the crisis happens and hey, well, it's happening. Well, you know what? Months ago, half a year ago, we saw this coming. You could have gotten ready. You could have got the gardens up. You could have prepared the food. You could have dehydrated. You could have stored things. But no, the news will tell you like the same week, well, we're not getting any more shipments in. Take everybody as a toilet paper this time. Ridiculous, man. Yeah, and that's a buying food one too. Like I had a great conversation with my sister because she follows my channel, and she was like, I saw you talk about all the additives in the food. Remember when we were kids, we had a Pop-Tart and there's only like 4 or 5 things in the Pop-Tart and you read the back of the box and it was like Pop-Tarts. It was like, I was like, yeah, there was like 5, 6 ingredients in a Pop-Tart box. Now you look on, it's like 60 ingredients in it. And we talked about all these things that we would eat as kids. And like, even the macaroni and cheese packs, the instant macaroni and cheese, it was like powdered cheese and you add your own milk and like stir it up. It was like
Right.
6, 7 ingredients on the whole thing. Now it's like, again, 50 ingredients. Like ice creams, damn, you don't need all the emulsifier. It was cream and like, it was
Yeah. Now you
cream
got
frozen with some sugar.
people making TikToks of trying to melt it on the barbecue grill and it won't melt because they're little ice cream sandwiches and stuff like that. Because none of that stuff is real food.
No, but what do you think about buying food here in 2016? And that's only a 10-year difference, not like a 40, 50-year difference. So, we're talking scales of magnitude here different.
Yeah, and then they get attitude when you don't pay that tip and all of that stuff because you get your food, it's stepped on. It looks like somebody might have nibbled some out of your hamburger and stuff. I always had a weird thing about even just going out to regular restaurants where you're right there watching them make it. And then this idea of adding a third party in between where there's no telling how many people have handled, touched, moved, gone through, tasted, or added to your food by the time you get it at DoorDash.
Yeah, it's nasty like that. But chefs, I must say, chefs that are cooking are well fed, so I'm not, in a real kitchen, like chefs, they're always tasting things, pre-preparing things, they're nibbling, they're always tasting. So, then you get the meals, the comp meals before and after, if you're going to run on an 8-hour shift or something, or even longer, you're getting fed and eating good all day. So I'm not worried about chefs nibbling on my stuff. And the waiters, again, you get comp meals and everything.
Man, I've been delivering packages all day on parts. I just needed a little tiny bite off of your pizza, so I took the 2 middle pieces and then pushed it together so it's still round and you won't notice.
Yeah, right. Something like that. There won't be like a tiny gap along each slice. And if you move the cheese over and squeeze it while it's still hot, it doesn't look like there's a mistake.
They have a whatever, short video of some chick that figured out how to scam everybody at the pizza place and get her free lunch and whatever. So she cuts like a really thin rectangle in the middle of it and then pushes it together and then sends it out. She gets to eat little strips of pizza all day. She's gonna be big in a few years though.
Yeah, right.
If they don't fire her after the video, of course.
Yeah, and I saw some video too where they were complaining that they got a $1 tip. Let's stay on the DoorDash here, that they were super complaining that the DoorDash driver got a $1 tip when it was like, that's unacceptable.
Yeah,
I only got $1, man. And like, that's unacceptable. And then with this whole thing for $1 tip, like, and then the whole debate, is $1 enough to DoorDash? Well,
I got kids. I need at least $20.
Yeah, I
No, that is messed up. I've seen, I don't know, endless amount of people wigging out at the door because someone didn't tip them right. And I'm thinking you're getting paid by the hour. You know what I mean? And you got an attitude about like those people that are showing up, delivering into the suburban areas, all the packages, and then getting mad because they realize that those people are just shopping online. They're getting soups, they're getting chips, they're getting water, they're getting everything delivered, and they get all mad about it. But that's your job. Soon all that stuff will be stolen before it even gets there. I think that's why they have such a rush to drop it in your yard. So only people that even have a yard are going to enjoy those drone drops. Otherwise, if you live in the hood, there's like 15 guys ready to wrestle you for the package. It reminds me of, when they were dropping the aid supplies to the poor starving people over there. Isn't that real similar to the drone delivery? You got to go fight for it in the street.
Yeah, they better get real precise on that,
Hunger Games.
Yeah, people chasing the drone down the street on motorcycles or bicycles. There's one going that way. We're going to find out where it's going. And then, Yeah, because here's the global grain update. If you could zoom that in a little bit and just kind of take away the bottom part, we're just looking at if you could take away that bottom where it says market outlook, like scrape that apart. I got this one too. I could zoom it in a little bit too. Yeah, right about there is what we're looking at. So if you look where the wheat and the corn and the rice is, so basically we're focused on wheat and rice because this is the biggies that are declined really incredibly this year. Corn, yeah, it's going to be dented a little bit, but there's a lot of corn around. It's the most widely grown crop. So, corn, no sweat. Soybeans, there's a lot of it.
Yeah.
A lot of places grow that too. The biggies are the wheat and the rice. This year, these are two major grain crops on the planet, but they are both coming in some of the lowest we've seen in like 100 years on both. So when you look at this and you think, are the carryover stocks they reported? I'll say this again. Our government reports that they have this much left over from last year in the grain silos, in the barges, in the warehouses. And again, you can't keep grains forever, but you get a good year out of them, and then you got to turn them over. They get moldy, and then they get, delegated and relegated down to either ethanol usage or animal feed, depending on the category. Because when your grains start to go, they don't go like in one day. They start to step down in quality, but you can still salvage a little bit of that and send it over to some, animal feed. And people buy it at a discount if they're going to feed their cows or, their hogs or some chickens, whatever. You get it at a far large discount. But once it gets past that unusable where animals can't even eat it, then they take it to the ethanol plant. So either way, it's going to get recycled because people buy it, or it's going to get recycled because it got so junky and it needs to leave, and somebody will buy it for ethanol or animal food. So they give us this number, and it's like 200 million tons was left from last year, for example. Like when I started the Adapt 2030 channel, it was 750 million tons is what we would have. Globally, for wheat stocks on the carryover, last year was like 250 million tons. So for me, I'm like, where's the extra half of a billion metric tons gone to that used to be in the world? Or like we're pulling out every single year. So we're down to, say, 250 million for easy math. Now, is that truly what's in there? Because if it's not, and we're down to really like 175, and then we come into super, super crazy lean crops this year, and then they start to tell us the true numbers, then everything that you're seeing of all these charts and all this analytical data and all the quant and how they're trying to, moving averages, that's going to blow out the window. It'll mean nothing. You'll watch something go from, wheat or rice, double, triple in price, because they got the carryover stocks wrong. Because if you say, we got 250 million tons, oh, by the way, we only had 150 million tons. Plus we didn't grow enough this year to feed the planet. So we're going to have to pull out of that. And we're going to be left with like 75 or 100 million tons. So then people are going to be looking forward next year. OMG. What happens if the same thing happens next year? We won't have enough in the carryover stocks to cover the entire planet's needs. And at that point, that's when society unravels. So we're about 1 to 2 steps away from that complete unravel. And we all need to cross our fingers at the data we've been fed about how much extra grain is in the carryover stocks sitting somewhere idle is correct. Because if they have been lying to stabilize markets, our civilization is going to rift at the seams, literally. And rice is no different because, if you look outside, there's more people that consume rice than corn. Rice is the staple crop for, almost 4 billion people, maybe 5 billion people. Wheat, 1.5 billion. It's nothing compared to rice. So when you start to look at the rice crop going, oh, it's low this year too. Every single place that grows rice had problems this year. Same with wheat. Everywhere that grew wheat has problems this year. So for me, it's a global event it doesn't matter if it's water or heat, or just something is wrong with the entire hydrological system that allows either rice to grow in certain seasons where it abundantly rains. Like they're talking about missed monsoons over here. Less monsoon was a quarter of what it should be. Like if they don't get that water to get into the paddies to start that rice off, then you lost your crop. Like it's not dry land rice, it's wet rice, most of it. And then the wheat, the same thing. If you can't get enough rainfall on your wheat and it's like the stem, they're coming up and they call it emergence where the little green shoot pops out. They call it wheatgrass. Like if that gets cooked and baked in a microwave oven with no rain for like 3 weeks, even if it starts growing again, it's going to be super scrimpy. And this is the whole thing that's been happening over and over again in Europe. They got like 3 heat domes, all at different phases of the crop maturation and growing. And it just never bounced back. It's just been, you're going to write a bunch of stuff off. And our wheat belt too, just been in a drought and incredible stress conditions. Like when you take all this into consideration, if it was just wheat, I would say, okay, it's just going to be wheat's going to get more expensive. But when you got 2 major grain crops affecting like 6 billion people on the planet, all going to lows that we haven't seen in 75 to 100 years. That's something very significant. Like we just haven't in our lifetimes, we haven't seen it. In your parents' lifetimes, they never saw it either. This is something that stretches to your grandparents or your great grandparents' lifetimes when they've seen something of this magnitude. Now put that in perspective for a second. Our economy is almost half broken anyway. And many economies around the world are stretched paper thin, man. They're so thread tight, like it's gone. And then we come in with all these rising food prices. This is just, like you mentioned, Ransom, cycle. It's just a cycle in history. And
right. And you know
what?
what?
Repeat, rinse and repeat.
I kind of just a long time ago gave up most of wheat products. I don't really eat gruel. I see it kind of more as a feed for cattle. The same with corn, unless I'm growing my own flint corn or painted corn in the yard to eat. Definitely don't eat soybean. That's for cows. Rice now, however, is a staple, major staple, at least right here in the Southwest. I mean, think of all the Hispanic foods that includes rice. I mean, even just Spanish rice, even over in Europe, a lot of rice dishes there. You got all of the Asia areas, including India. Everybody eats a lot of rice. I can't really say that for the corn anymore. I mean, it used to be a big staple, but unless it's coming in the form of chips or processed foods or high fructose corn syrup, I mean, you could kind of do without the corn. Or like I said, you could grow the native varieties at home, and you can collect quite a bit of corn to do, especially flint corn, because it dries up, it gets hard. You could store it relatively easy and break it out later, add water, grind it up, and you have material for all kinds of home cooking.
Yeah, you can grow your own corn because, Amish are pretty close to where we live. And we got some seed variety from them that was like the heirloom corn that they grow to feed to their cattle and pig. And it comes in and it looks like candy corn colors. There's not any that is of one variety because they just let it self-pollinate. So we took out a bunch of individual colors and planted them in little plots by themselves of just that color. And we had pretty good results. We got 90% of the same colored kernel come out. We had a real beautiful, like medium purple on one. And then we had a really beautiful, very dark, almost indigo blue that came out of one as well. And I would say 90%, but there were some other colors in there. It wasn't 100% off the ear of exactly that same type of corn, but heirloom varieties. And then, you could easily take that and then regrow again next year. So whatever color you were looking for, they had the starburst corns and, any type that you want. You can get predominant ear coloring and kernels out of the same one, and then you could just pull from that if you don't think the starburst is going to grow or grind the same way of the other ones. You've got some experience with corn too, man. Well, he left, so he's out for a minute. But if anybody else has experience with corn, like to know what you've grown, or Ransom, I was just saying that you have experience growing corn in your own space there, like. Oh, you didn't hear what I was saying, huh?
Yeah, about the corn. I do have some pretty good experience.
Oh, you do? Okay, cool. Yeah, look at that right there. I mean,
well, fiddle, focus in there.
Yeah, the filter's coming through there.
Stupid thing, but yeah. Actually, I made a lot of starbursts that look like marijuana leaves, and then I bred green corn. So I don't think anyone else besides maybe Diamond has green corn. And when I mean green, like olive drab, like military color. I don't know. Maybe you could grow it and it's camouflaged. But somehow it turned out green, and we saved a bunch of those. And then I specifically only grew those next to the yellow starburst and came out with a themed corn naturally without genetic engineering. But yeah, I have stockpiles of different kinds of corn: sweet corn, white corn, blue corn, painted corn, and then a variety that I gathered that I was just showing, which is all of the Native American corn mixed together, basically. So it has all the genetics in there.
Yeah, and what do you do for storage then on that?
Just jars. It's dry. I mean, it's flint corn. So, the other kind of corn, like sweet corn and stuff, you're going to want to eat that when you harvest it and cook it and stuff like that. Some of the other native kind, you just get it early, put it right on the grill. It's soft. You can eat it like that, or just, let it dry into flint corn and store it as long as you keep moisture out of it. And there's another phenomenon that I found out on accident, and then found out I grew a whole thing on accident. So there's this fungus that Americans would call corn blight, right? But down in Mexico, they actually collect that and make a whole plethora of different foods out of it, including tacos, all kinds of stuff made out of the fungus. It's delicious, weirdly. And I grew that a couple times. So even if you have like what you think is ruined corn, you can actually still collect a lot of food out of it.
You mean that bump, that bulbous kind of growth that comes off the corn?
Yeah, it's like a dark green or black
Yeah, that's
colored.
it.
Yeah. And you can cook that and eat that. That's edible.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, I did throw away corn because we did have some of that on there. Not all of it, but a smidgen, let's say. You grind
Yeah,
your own
man.
corn too? Do you ever grind your own into flour?
I have never done that, but I know I can. I mean, I can. I have matatas outside just sitting there that I've collected around from the Southwest, laying around in places that was, just sitting in the rocks. But you could tell what it was. Somebody used that for a long time.
Well, like
Yeah,
what do you
just a piece of nice granite and rub it against some more granite and grind up your corn. Matter of fact, most of the cliff dwellings that you visit in the Southwest, on every window is I believe I'm saying it right, a matata. But anyway, it's little grooves that they would just put the corn right on and grind it into a paste. And you can still find the little corns, like in the cliff dwellings in the bottom, the cobs and stuff, all the way from when it was abandoned.
And the question is, why was it abandoned? That could be another great one, you know? I mean,
Uh,
you look through history and there are more abandoned cities than you can, count. You look at
right.
where we sit today in the world and where our major cities are, and then you look in the past, not, maybe I would say 3,000 years ago is a good one, but then you're talking more recent with the cliff dwelling. Like when did they abandon that? 700 years prior, 800 years ago?
Yeah, something happened where the Southwest just completely dried out and
Dried
had
out.
no rain, and it was very hard to live here for a while. And then, at the end of that, they started building back up on top. They abandoned that whole lifestyle.
And you can see the deserts of the world too are riddled with whatever was happening at that time. There were rivers, lakes, mountains, estuaries, trade routes of most of the deserts that we see today is like deserts, harsh environments you can't live in. There were major metropolitan areas connected through major trade routes that are completely under sand, and those rivers don't run any longer. So you have to ask yourself what flipped on there too. You can go through the Sahara. Yeah, there's huge trade routes all the way from the Red Sea clear over to the Atlantic. Used to be one giant estuary through there that they used to travel by boat, literally from the Red Sea nearly over to the Atlantic Ocean. Now think about that today. There's hardly any moisture there. And then if you go over into the deserts of Western China, I mean, all those great empires that had all the trade posts and everything in there as well, cities, fortresses, and then that's the same thing. You look in Iran, the dryness, they've abandoned those. Some of them are on hilltops. Wherever you go, Afghanistan, India, like all these great places that had massive, massive habitation centers that were the beginning of our civilization are all in the driest places on the planet now, like literally bone dry, no water, can't sustain a civilization. So what happened that caused that? So I'm asking the question, another 3,000 years, will our present large cities, will they be in desert areas and people will be asking like, how did they live here? What did happen? Are we going to go through another flip back where some areas are going to become wet again and where we're living is going to become uninhabitable? Is the question. So please join us for the second hour while we explore this. I'm going to run through a few more topics. Definitely wanted to get into the organisms living inside psychopaths could be driving bad behavior. The rotten meat, no milk on the USS Abraham. They're talking about, is this an experiment to see how far to push troops before they will revolt so they know how far they can push them? Just a few interesting like this, and the huge oil spills off of Oman, and also the massive oil spills coming off of Iran. Environmental catastrophe as these two oil spills might merge across the entire Middle East into the Red Sea. We'll see how it goes. Come back for the second hour right here at the Civilization Cycle. Please sign up for the newsletter. Get that out to you, 10 bullet points of what we spoke about in the show. And we'll be right back. That's at civilizationcycle.com. And if you like the content here, buy us coffee, actually a double espresso at buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle. Again, we'll be back in a couple minutes. See you then.
Please remember to sign up for our show notes. With Civilization Cycle podcast, you can learn what to expect as society resets. Agriculture, economy, tech, and history all have mappable cycles, and these cycles affect every aspect of our lives. We can navigate the chaos and thrive together with up-to-date news and information. Also, if you like the content we have here on Civilization Cycle, think about fueling the discussions and the show by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle. And thank you for all the support.
Innovation through nature, Illuminated Digest balances and supports full, healthy gut microbiome, intestinal wall integrity, and normalizes blood viscosity. Because we hear an enormous amount about people having gut issues and digestive issues. I don't know if it's the modern diet or what's been used in the agricultural process, but that gut biome is so important to our brain fog that we get and how much energy we have. And a lot of times if you got a lot of bad breath, it's because you got the wrong kind of bacteria that have overtaken the good bacteria in your stomach. It's time to rebalance that back out, especially right now when we might need to be changing our food choices because of all the disruptions that we're seeing across the planet agriculturally. Illuminated Digest, proprietary probiotic blends, enzymes, herbs, and fulvic minerals. Try Illuminated Digest and see how good you feel when your gut biome is in balance. I love the products at Alpha Vedic. You support them, they support us. It's a win-win-win for everybody. And see how much more energy you have after trying Illuminated Digest. That link's in the description box below. Feeling the heat, the exhaustion, the withering, being out in the heat. The summer returns once again. Time to rehydrate. We got hydration that works as hard as you do. Perform Light, got sodium, potassium, magnesium, superfood recovery blend, vitamin C. And as Victory Nutrition International would say, recharge, replenish, recover faster. If you want to support this channel, support our advertisers. Fatigue-free summer, stay hydrated, Perform Light. Click on that link in the description box below.
The psychos, that's funny he said that because I was going to bring up the same article right here. And it makes a lot of sense, you know, if you pay attention to what was going on since 2020, there was a couple of certain pharmaceutical things that were widely accepted for use for like 20 years before that, that all of a sudden became bad news. Or, you know, they might have told you were taking horse medicine or dog medicine or whatever, but that, you know, may or may not kind of link into this. Organisms living inside psychopaths could be driving bad behavior, scientists claim. And, you know, that is very possible. There's all kinds of viruses and other things that cause people to shift their behavior, not to mention the aspect of just being sick with it. But in here, it talks about, where was it? Inbound to be controversial. New research scientists claim they've discovered a link between specific balance of microflora in the gut and psychopathic behavior. As detailed in a yet-to-be peer-reviewed study, a team of researchers led by the University of Porto biomedical scientist Carolina Costa something, messed that up, say they found the first evidence of how microbiota could influence traits linked to psychopathy. However you say that.
That's correcto. And they are saying that parasitic organisms can control your brain. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So now we're being admitted that there could be parasites that can control human behavior. Where have we
Yeah,
heard that or seen that in popular movies before?
I don't know, but I just thought it was weird that, there's some pharmaceuticals, generally used in the farm that's been used for decades for your dogs, for your horses, for your
Horses, sure.
pigs, everything. And I don't know if you guys know this because this is a discussion, and I'm not giving medical advice, obviously. However, I did notice that because I house or rescue or whatever you want to call it, a relatively large size of animals and have a lot of experience with it, working on farms, ranches throughout my life. I've noticed that a lot of the people that live out on farms, their dogs grow old and they just kind of die of old age if they don't get hurt, like from something like ran over or whatever. But the one thing that I never see usually on them are those big, nasty tumors all over them that I see on pets that live in the house. So, like, all of these house pets, including ours, like several of the cats, one of the old dogs, that have done nothing but taken stuff for rabies and other things that the cities make you take. Like there's a couple of them depending on where you live. Those animals seem to develop tumors, and there's only really two different things happening between the two populations of like even feral animals outside, like the cats. I rarely ever see like big tumors on them or anything like that. The two things that are different is the kind of food that they eat indoor and just having medical attention. I mean, other than that, there's really no difference in their lifestyles.
Yeah, I would say farm animals, they do get a lot more exercise, though. Like a cat in a house is not going to run as much as it would on a farm, maybe prowling around a barn all the day long, eating fresh meat out of the barn. And birds and bats, and cattle sit there for 20 minutes waiting for the right time to pounce on a bird, whack, and just get some fresh meat. Cats are good hunters, barn cats. I was always like, I think a good thing would be like a barn cat rent a program, because I don't have any cats out of my place, but I would definitely want to rent a couple because we don't want to get more animals out there. But I would love to rent somebody's cats for a couple days, lock them in the barn, make sure that we can get all the mice out of there, field mice. Maybe put up some way to around there too, so we can get any of the mice that are around there, because field mice, they're everywhere.
Well,
I'll agree. And could they be getting like residues or residuals that could help them? I don't know.
Well, I think it might have to do with the fact that farm animals specifically and ranch animals, including most dogs, because they run around in manure and stuff. So you have to do it or your dog's going to get all kinds of parasites, hookworms, etc., tapeworms. What was that thing they were trying to scare everybody with? Screw worms, like there's all kinds of stuff that mess with your farm animals and your ranch animals. And one thing that they've taken heavily for decades and decades and decades is medicine to treat said parasites. Now, humans don't take those medications really ever. And as far as I know, the medical industry doesn't even look for, unless you know for a fact that you have a specific parasite. So it's weird that now they're looking into it and saying, oh, well, maybe people are psychopaths because they have, a different parasite. And they've long said that probably people have no fear and do different things due to toxoplasma from the cats. And then, if you have a bad immune system, you might have issues with a brain eating thing actually messing with your behavior.
Yeah, let me tell you about some dogs here. We are in Asia are able to get something called NexGard, which goes through, it does all the heartworm, it does all those different types of parasites you're talking about, but in America you can't get that. So we went to our vet, because we had to get some paperwork done, and they're asking, what kind of, heartworm medicine do you have your dog on? We're like, oh, we use this one. We're like, oh, that's not even available in America. That's actually far superior to anything we can sell you here, but where'd you get that from? And we're like, oh, overseas, because our friend's a vet. And that was it. And it's like, okay. But it covers every single type of thing that can get into the gut of your dogs. But in the United States, it only is a select few, which I found really interesting on why isn't there a full spectrum coverage like there would be in Asia for something. And that product's not available in America, and you got to buy it over here and then bring it back. Not illegal to bring back. It's just, it is what it is. But I've always asked myself that question, like, why is it that it only protects for some of the parasites, but it doesn't protect for all of them, even though you could do all of them in one, they eat it like every 45 days, we grind it up in the food for them. Oh, it's for fleas and ticks as well. Like they get that thing, they eat it. There's no flea, no tick, no worms, heartworms, and that stuff. And yeah, because you got to think those grazing animals, they're always out there on the ground. Like think about horses and cows, they're grazing, and sheep, they're grazing right down to the very nub of that. They're actually getting in the dirt. They got grit. If you ever cleaned out an animal's intestines at like those kind of, they got grit. It's so gritty. Their stomachs are gritty. They're just like grit machines, because they're always down in that silica layer, dirt layer, dust layer, sand layer, grinding into those plants at the bottom right there. And wondering what they'll get into them when they're eating that low on the ground,
This you want to hear something funny here? Look at this.
Yeah, go. Keep it clean though, man. Keep it clean.
Oh, always. Just for this discussion, I looked this up. Evidently, so according to the AI overview from Google, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommends ivermectin as a standard pre-departure presumptive treatment for intestinal parasites for certain refugees before they resettle.
Yeah, strongylitis.
Right, before they come into the United States. This long-standing medical protocol treats parasitic worms, and
that would be for hookworms and those kind of things too. There's different kind of tapeworms, hookworms. There's all kind of worms that are around in the parasites in your guts too, for humans.
Right.
But which ones are the ones that are driving behavioral change? That's the question. Are those literally alien parasites? We've seen it in the movies, man. They're telling you something gets in the body and like controls the brain. We see it now where something can get into like a praying mantis and control its brain. Right? Are we something similar to that? I'm just asking for a friend. Because think about somebody living in Africa, like how much do they, get into their bodies? That's different. Ringworm. How many types of parasites and things do you think an African person gets in their body during a lifetime compared to, let's say, the average American? It's going to be substantially larger. And then depending on what country you live in, there's all those like boring insects that get into your feet and they lay those eggs in there and they grow out and you get bitten by different flies and things just growing out of your skin, just craziness. Like that doesn't happen in America too much. I mean, you might get a ringworm or a hookworm or something like that, the pinworms or something. I don't know. That's about as far as it goes. You're not getting full on like bloated full of worms like you would in Africa. That's insane. But think about behavioral changes. Is it really tied to that? And if it is, then what about all the prisons that are full of people? What if they went in with that kind of, different, that they always try to rehabilitate people in prisons, but a lot of times it doesn't work, but you ask why not? But if you could remove the host that's inside the host, right?
Yeah.
The parasite in the host, if you could remove all them, I wonder what it would do for behavior in prison. Because I saw some crazy documentary on just the ADD and terrible behavior in classrooms that caused certain students to get sent to, not even special learning. It's just like you're downright naughty and you're near prison going into juvenile detention if you don't settle down in class. And they took away the Coca-Cola and they took away the fast food and the potato chips, and these became like model students again. Unbelievable. So everybody has different reactions for different chemicals in their body, especially sugars and processed foods and everything. So just showing it there. And if they could get all those students that were the worst of their classes and worst of the schools to become productive Model A students again, just by changing their diets. I can imagine what else is out there that we could, throw into the mix to change people's behaviors as well.
Yeah. Just imagine that if people ate clean food that gave them, a good attitude all day. Actually, this has long been known that your gut fauna and your flora totally control aspects of your behavior. I mean, from mood to hunger to aggression, things like that. And if you knew that, you might alter, I don't know, the diet of everyone. If you knew what would happen, like maybe you wanted people to not be so smart, you might add a little extra fluoride, or just let them drink Diet Coke. Evidently, it says right here, MSN study reveals cognitive decline linked to drinking Diet Coke daily. That's what everybody drinks after having a double cheeseburger.
Yeah, and that's a good one too, because it's a peer-reviewed linked to the journal called Neurology. And see that hyperlinked blue one right there? You see that hyperlinked blue? I wonder where that takes us in terms of like the report itself. Because this takes us over to a neurology journal, peer-reviewed read. Okay, there it is, an 8-year study. So, I mean, you got to be peer-reviewed in some of these places, you have to have some legitimate, data behind you.
Right, and it's not me saying that, it's them saying that. I love Diet Coke. No, I'm just kidding. I don't drink it, but
now scroll down. Usually they'll have different kind of graphics in there that shows you some of the methods or the numbers. So you might come across a graphic where it'll show you never accept all cookies. Never, because they'll put like 300 or 400 cookies on your device. And sometimes if you just click, it won't.
They can have their study back. I don't want the cookies.
Yeah, I don't want.
I don't want their aspartame cookies, man.
Get those all.
I noticed one time, and this was a while back, but I went to the grocery store and I thought, you know what, I'm lazy. I'm gonna go ahead and buy like one of those TV dinner things. I hadn't ate one of those in probably 20 plus years or something like that. And I got one and it had Salisbury steak in it, and that's the only flavor that they had. So I was like, well, whatever. And I flipped it over just, for F's sake, to read the ingredients, and it had aspartame listed in there. And I was thinking, why do you need artificial sweetener in a Salisbury steak? Like you were talking about before, it's not just a couple of ingredients, just a bunch of ingredients for no reason. And they're maltodextrin, whatever, and 20 different food colorings for something that's brown.
And I would have reversed that conversation back to me and my sister, because we did have those kind of TV dinners. But it would have been like the mashed potato would have been just from potatoes that they froze right away and put them in there. There wouldn't have been anything for long storage life, because those things always came frozen anyway. Right? So you think about the quality of the food, even what we consider like fast food back in my day, that was considered health food. Like you paying a premium for that stuff now. And that was junk food for us growing up. As your premium health food now was our junk food. Now put that in perspective. What do you think the diet's done differently? And I like the way you phrased it. We were already mature enough when, our bodies had formed, and before we got into these really crazy, chemical composition in the food, we were already, let's say, in our 20s. So it didn't really have an effect on development compared to somebody who starts eating that when they're 5 years old. That's a huge difference. And then they're eating that for 15 years while their bodies are developing, and you got to look at all that stuff in the food and say, that can't be right. There's got to be something behind that is making it. And it's just more, you need to look far deeper into the reasons. Like, again, I can't come any further than our planet's being invaded. And the first stages before the true invasion is you weaken the masses, you weaken the inhabitants of wherever area you're going to invade. That's the phase we're in right now. I'm just wondering when the true invasion comes, because they've been setting us up for the alien invasion for a long time. Perhaps they've just been broadcasting it. Yeah, we're weakening the entire populace, and then the real invasion's coming.
Right.
That's why we're supposed to love them. There's 67 different genders of aliens. We're supposed to love them.
I'm thinking it might just be a alien species of human from here. Yeah. That has this AI here. I was just thinking while we were talking about all that bad stuff in the food and the drinks and the air, and we've kind of covered the plethora of things that are polluted, including like I didn't even get to it a minute ago, the big oil spills in the mines and all of that floating around in the water. But then if you were going to complain about it or make comments or call to your representatives that represent you, who is that? Are they chatbots or are they real people? According to this, chatbots are doing the work of Congress with little oversight. They're writing the speeches, they're writing the bills, they're writing, the emails for the constituents. Everything that they're doing there is now controlled by an AI, and it's like when you're paying attention to the markets, right? What do you think's happening over there? It's the same exact thing. They're talking about the number of people that want to buy houses down. It's not that. It's that the number of people that realize they cannot buy one or afford one at the prices on the market have gone like up. So all those people that realize, well, we're not going to buy a home, so we need to reinvest in what we're doing to survive. That's what happened. It's not that. And then it's all over the market.
Let me add something there. I watch this guy who walks around different neighborhoods, and he's a real estate agent. Seems pretty cool. Got reflective glasses, are always orange. He's always on the beach and stuff. But he was saying one of the things is, like, all these boomers' houses are going to come for sale here in the next 20 years. And, if you can just wait it out, you can get a house at a discount. But right now, because, the interest rates are real high, and he's like, they're kind of working in tandem, because as all these boomers pass away in the next 20 years, there's going to be 6-7 million listings for sale at any one time, is his prediction. Right now, there's like 1.5 million homes for sale in America. But he's saying that, there'll be easily every day you'll see 5 or 6 million homes for sale. Because if you get inherited a home, 80% of the people sell it within the first couple of years of getting it from their parents or whatnot. That this is going to be a thing, and there's going to be more homes for sale. And at that time, the interest rates should be dropping. So he's like, if you can just hold out for another turn or so, for another decade before you buy a house, you're going to get one at a discount at a crazy good interest rate. So just put that in perspective for a minute with all these headlines you're seeing of not enough home buyers. Well, it's a deflated dollar that they're trying to sell you into. And then if you buy this house, how are you going to be able to sell in the future if there's 5 million homes for sale and all these baby boomers have passed away and all their real estate's on the market? How are you going to compete with that? And just completely, I'm not even talking oversaturated, I'm talking oversaturated, waterlogged, underwater market of millions of homes for sale that sit there for years and years and years on end. And you're trying to sell into that same market. And that's the whole thing that they're not telling you on the other end of that story there. Is in another, under 20 years, are they going to start bulldozing the homes like they do in other countries to try to bring up the property values? Are they going to sell them, because they've passed a lot of laws where certain, like BlackRock, they can only buy 350 units in certain areas. Like I think they limited it to 350 in a certain jurisdiction, and they can do that in every jurisdiction, but they can only get like 350 rental homes. So they can't buy the entire market up because they could do that in one day. So there's all these laws. So the big players aren't going to come in and swoop up all this real estate like you think they might. So I'll leave it there. But yeah, what else is going on that financial side of things?
Well, we're about to start the financial wars, right? That's what this is all about here. That's what we're going to be doing to the other places that we want to put stress on. And it seems like if there's a world economy, as they always say, the world economy, right? That if you force a good portion of the world economy to stop working or to have war with it, then of course that your economy too is going to feel the repercussions of that. And that's what supposedly we're going to be doing instead of going the military route. Allegedly, there's talks of pulling back and not supporting Israel's campaign that they want to continue doing there. But I think, like we were talking about before, they're just going to kind of, maybe lay off for a week or two and give you some new headlines. And then we're going to jump right back into it. And it's going to be this. We're going to start crippling their economy. And then this is what I really wanted to get into, this new bloc that's forming that we've been talking about a lot on this show, and the Middle Eastern bloc, which seems like it's going to include Europe, whether they like it or not. But anyway, Saudi Arabia considers backing Yemeni ground offensive to retake Houthi-held Red Sea. But I wanted to link this also to this, the GOP worries time running out on Trump's agenda with Congress. He needs to get permission again, but he's just going to name it a new, thing. And then what was that slide you sent me? This right here.
Yeah, that slide is the most important slide of the week for sure.
this is where it's all about, and this is what I've been talking about. And if you don't know, Iran is going to be part of this triangle, and this is what I've been talking a lot about. Turkey is a major manufacturer of weapons, and they have a large army, a lot larger than some of the other European Union nations, and they're high tech. They're not a bunch of cave dwelling, enemy like that. So if they take part with Saudi Arabia, which is rich beyond imagination, and the nuclear power of Pakistan, and then you start including these other Islamo countries that will want to fall in line with the new order. Then you have what we've been talking about, the trilateral commission, the three block setup. You have the Asian bloc, the European, Middle Eastern bloc, and the American bloc. And we're working on our bloc over here, but we're also working on establishing seemingly some kind of negotiation with this. So it seems like there's going to be a battle for who controls this block soon, because the sides are being drawn. And this is going to control all the trade routes right here, like I've been talking about for a long time, from the ancient city of Tyre right there in Lebanon or Israel, I forget which one it's in, all the way over to India, which is also another nuclear power, which stretches over to Taiwan. This whole belt will be World War III. And if you just draw that map all the way over the Pacific, you'll see that it lines up with, the north of South America, northern South America, the Gulf, and all of those resources that lie on the other side of the Panamanian Canal there. That was a mouthful.
You see that Saudi Arabia wants to hook up with the army inside Yemen to go after the rebels, quote unquote, in Yemen. So you got the two factions that are really deciding who's going to control Yemen moving forward. Because who can do the most damage the quickest to get their populace to turn on the popular government is the same thing they're doing in Iran with the United States. Like, if they can outlast us through the midterms here, then pretty much they've won. Even if they've lost militarily, they've won, because it's just going to be a political nightmare. It'll be uncontrollable and unfixable, especially if everything gets swept. Let's say Congress and House both go truly, like, tremendously the opposite direction, and Trump's just out here by himself. Impeachments are going to start. These guys are going to start forming their blocks. The new economy is going to form around us, because these clowns in both houses, or both branches, they're sitting there going, well, we don't want this. We don't want the Clarity Act. Okay, we don't want to have any legislation on stable coins. Okay, Clarity Act aside, at least pass some legislation that knows something about stable coins. So if these guys want to buy treasury bonds, that's cool, that they can back them and then issue more stable coins that can be floated out across the planet. You don't have to have fuller legislation for everything that's ever going to exist in crypto in the history of crypto moving forward. How about we start with something that props up our economy for a minute and then move forward from there? Step two, baby steps, man. At least do a fraction of the Clarity Act that puts stablecoin issuers into whatever legislative and mandated and oversight and whatever it needs to go in that box. So somebody can look in there and go, there's no fraud. You're not going to defraud the American people. You can issue the stable coins. How about we take that step? And you guys are stepping on each other's toes, fighting for a vote in November when we are falling behind. That's national security type issues. And it's just kind of blatant to see that either they're working together to destroy this nation, or they should all be, everybody should be thrown out, and people like Ransom and myself should be put in place, because at least we got common heads. At the very minimum, man. Think about it. Portion of the backing our, issuing stable coins by backing of U.S. Treasuries, got to go forward. We need it. We're gonna hyperinflate away in this country if we don't get this passed, and we're already months behind. And they're going to push it out into September now. And now the way the speed of things moves, a week is like a year. So if we're off 4 weeks, that's like 4 or 5 years falling behind in the crypto space now. Like we're really falling behind, and either it's purposeful, or those people need to be out of power because they're so inept at what they're doing with their jobs. One of the two.
Well, I've been thinking personally that if the West and Israel together thinks that they can strategically take that triangle that you're looking at on the screen, then you will have a Republican president and more war, just more war for probably a decade. If they don't think that they can strategically take this. They're going to give you a lot of bread and circus at home because of the stalled economy that's going to have ripples for decades, probably because of just this little stop in the economy, the stop of shipping, the stop of logistics, the stop of resources being used to make products and those going out the world economy. If they don't think they're going to tank it, I think that's what you'll see is you'll see all of these bread and circus impeachments, and then you'll see a bunch of socialist programs go forward and a bunch more spending as the ship sinks. But it looks like either way, they need to reset the economy, and I'm thinking that they need this triangle to go. I'm going to go ahead and say Islamo-fascist, kind of like the Ottoman Empire. Otherwise, they won't be able to convince people to send endless resources, i.e., their children and futures, over to settle this area again, or have a crusade. I mean, basically, it's an economic crusade, not a religious one.
I got something that goes on there. You just pinged me. So let me share this article here. You just said endless wars for 10 years. All right. So this article is incredibly interesting here. That's talking about, this comes from Aaron Parnas, and they're talking about messages sent from the USS Abraham Lincoln. That rotten meat, no milk, troops detail life aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln. And here's your carrier here. It looks like a rust bucket. It's kind of embarrassing that we have this, non-cared for ship out there. I mean, you look at this, this should be retired in my opinion, but that doesn't show Navy power for me. That doesn't show American Navy power. It shows American Navy power in massive decline is what that shows to me. If a picture's worth 1,000 words, right there's your 1,000 words. It ain't working anymore.
Well, think about this. That looks like what our World War I naval ship would have looked like parked at Pearl Harbor.
Yep, exactly does, right? They left them all there. Now, let me come down to the interesting part of the article. They talk about, these soldiers are writing, these sailors are writing back, excuse me. They can't they got rotten here because they can't get the cold supply chain in. They can't get milk in. They haven't had milk in 3 months is what it says here. Eating cereal with no milk, and then they go down. But here's the interesting part of that. You can read it yourself on these different sailors writing back and forth to their loved ones back home. But since you just said to me that 10-year thing, I already pre-grabbed this part in blue here. And one of the crew members was saying, is this an experiment the government's doing to see how far they can push sailors past the limits of being out to sea with the worst experience? So if you're just telling me that, and it makes sense, if they're going to be sending troops out for extended periods of time for a decade-long war, they would want to know where the breaking point is before there's literally a mutiny on this ship. So then they could use that as their benchmark of how far they could push, what really needs to be supplied, what is a must-have for comfort before people won't bellyache, right? So for me, this makes perfect sense on what you just shared there about a possible 10-year conflict, right? How long could you push them? And what point will they push till they break?
Right. And, it's not like a World War II thing where they had a pretty good propaganda, we're the good guys, we're saving the world, and they attacked us. That's why we're going and all of that stuff. We don't have that really now. I mean, people aren't convinced of that. Multiple USS Abraham Lincoln sailors have tried to go overboard. So they're just trying to jump off. And it's not like where they're situated, right, that they think they're just going to swim to the coast. They know why they're jumping in the water. And this alone just kind of shows you the morale, what's going on over there. And this is funny because this kind of links to what's going on back at home, the morale at home. You're seeing pictures you might not like, even though you might have voted for the idea. What they're doing doesn't seem to be like what they said they were going to do. Instead, it seems like they're giving a production for you to, be demoralized at home. And this is funny because about 10 years ago, I had like a free subscription, I think, to not a gun magazine, but like it was like a thing that sold all kinds of stuff, gun ads, private detectives. Yeah, it had all kinds of stuff. And in there, I saw stun gloves. And I was thinking, wow, that's kind of crazy. The whole idea. Do they make a right and a left? And they sure enough did. And then I went looking for that product again later, and it disappeared. It wasn't for public. Yeah, I couldn't find it anywhere. I couldn't even find results for things talking about it. And now, boom, 10 years later, it shows up on the headlines: U.S. immigration agents to use electroshock gloves, so that they can get out there and just zap people that are trying to take them.
Hey,
Take
Ransom, can
people.
you go back? You were on the USS Abraham Lincoln. You had a bunch of stories lined up, and it showed the ship, and then also, yeah, like scroll down in there. Where was that? There was like some tweets or something. You had another bunch of some
Oh
headline
yeah, that was
tweets.
this guy over here.
Yeah, right. So look where look at the meals that they're getting on the left.
Oh yeah, down
RT's
here.
coming. All right, there you go. And then US again, they're saying, is this a test to see? But look what the scrimpy they're getting. That's all they're getting for food.
And then you mentioned prisoners a minute ago, right? And what are they feeding them in there, and what's going on with their bio? Ironically, they feed prisoners in a lot of states great. I mean, good food. I can tell you this from experience. Really good food, and they put saltpeter in it allegedly to nerf down people's attitudes. However, they also give them access to a fully stocked gym. So when people go in there and you're talking about rehabilitation, they're with a bunch of other criminals. There's a whole, propaganda thing in there. You got a whole rule system and a political system and all of that in there. And then at the same time, you would think if you really wanted those people to be more lethargic and, peaceful, if you will, to rehabilitate them, you wouldn't even put them in the situation of agitation and then give them enough food and exercise to where they're actually dangerous for when you let them out early on the street, right? Doesn't sound like something you would do with scary, dangerous prisoners. Is feed them really good and then set them loose.
Yeah, I see that one London hit by 5th heat wave on the right side there. Reuters on your X feed. Yeah, right there. Curious what it shows on the crop growing areas there. Well, that's on windy.com. That's an excellent site, by the way, for anybody who wants to track weather, temperatures, winds, all types of storms and things. Windy.com. That is probably the best. Null School and windy.com, just for reference on that. So where's the heat wave in London?
It's only 36 degrees, man, Celsius.
How many degrees Celsius?
It looked like 36 right there in Paris. That looked about the hottest one I saw.
36. Yeah, but what's the
37 in Madrid.
If it's 30, you're talking like 90 degrees.
Right. Says it's 37 in Madrid and 36.
But it's always
in
hot in the
Paris.
summer in Madrid. It's Spain.
Right. Look at over there, it's like 18 over in Russia and stuff. They're
Well, that's just weather over there. That's just weather.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that. It snowed. Where was Albania's gotten snow already? That's kind of crazy.
And then we got Hawaii. I hope the Hawaiians don't depend on the services like they did for the fires. There's a big storm coming, probably lots of rain, lots of flooding, lots of power outages, wind, etc. And they're talking about heavy rain and big waves across the main island. So I hope nobody, disregards warnings or doesn't take life seriously. At least get a water straw.
Okay, so there's your cone coming off. Yeah, see, it's going to hit the southern tip of the big island there. So southern Maui should be getting some big waves too down there up into Lahaina and that sort of thing off the harbor.
Right, but
places that don't normally break like Kihei are probably going to get double overhead, those storms that pass. But the wind too, I mean, it's going to be it'll be blowing offshore on the west side. Depending on that track, a lot of times those things will come from the south and head up into the north. This one's going to skirt those islands. So it's just going to be a wind fest pretty much with terrible conditions. And then, a lot of those river mouths are running out a bunch of, debris and like mud and stuff. It's not fun. But that's like going straight over the islands. That doesn't look very good.
yeah, that's what I was saying. Just don't count on your local authorities. Take care of yourself. Prepare yourself. I mean, I don't know how many times the public needs to learn that lesson that you cannot depend on the government to protect you in any circumstance, which ironically led to my next idea here. I don't know if they're planning a civil war here on the next election. We were just talking about how things might just take a left turn at the next presidential election. Trump administration's lets key gun law lapse following court ruling all over Twitter and everywhere. People were buying silencers up. I'm sorry, suppressors, not silencers. They're suppressors. What do you think about that?
Well, I think if you were going to game this out and you knew Trump was going to do the opposite of what he'd promised people, that he would be unelected in a landslide unelection, sweep to the other side in the midterms. But you achieved your objective. You got in there, you started bashing Iran. We can change the global economy. We can switch up the hegemony and keep America on top along with Israel, and we can keep that wagon churning along for the global economy for a minute. But if you gamed it out and you knew that he was going in there, the next step would be logically, you're going to lose all the midterm elections. It's going to be difficult. Even if we pulled out now and gas went to $1 a gallon, there's still going to be a lot of people going, you know what, you lied pretty much all the way until this time, and now you want to be the good guy again at the midterm and want us to vote for you again. I don't believe in elections anyway. It's all a bunch of puppets put in front of you. If there were real people out there, we would see change, but we don't see positive change for our countries or for humanity. It's always taking us down the road of the financial industrial complex, the technology industrial complex, military industrial complex is so well noted by Simon Dixon. Big fan of his work. I listen to him anytime I can because he and his guests are always on top of this whole movement of there's this giant superstructure above our governments that are dictating to our governments what to do. And these elections are a farce. It's just the politicians, the reason they're allowed to be out there is they're the ones they believe that can convince the most people that what they're going to do is going to benefit the people. But in actuality, it's going to revert right back to the fick, the tick, and the mick again. So gaming this out, they already had to know that this would be a complete Charlie Foxtrot coming into the elections here. Like they didn't know that? I mean, really?
Yeah, they knew.
Back at it again, like what happens next? Well, the plans, think about what got accomplished so far.
Well, you notice throughout history, anytime one party has total control of the White House, the Congress, and the Senate, they don't do diddly squat. They never do it. They wait till they lose an election, then they say, oh, we can't because the other side won't let us do it. So like the SAVE Act, they have no reason not to put that through. Just one Republican guy decides, that's probably not a good idea that we do that. And then, it's funny about that because you got Mamdani or whatever his name is over in New York talking about how elections that you can't force people to use ID. That is completely racist. However, our new communist grocery store will require an ID to make sure you're a local person and verified that you're allowed to come in and buy at our communist. One thing that's funny about that
you need an ID to get on an airplane at JFK.
Right. And why did they think that this is going to work over there? Because I was going to say, you got to think back to Chicago did the same thing with the communist city run grocery store, and they ran out of food and it went out of business right away because of their, regressed.
The theft was so much. I've heard somebody I call him mammary gland. Mommy Dommy or whatever, and then somebody was a Mommy Dommy. No, he's a mammary gland, something like that, along the whole chatter wave of creating nicknames for this thing.
Right, and then we talk about the Middle East a lot, but I was trying to add that from India over Pakistan on that little map we were looking at, but India is having some issues over there, and they're also making some strategic moves to make them more of a player. And you got to keep in mind that they do have a lot of people, a lot of internet force power and companies and different things like that. So they have cards to play from India. They're also a nuclear armed nation that doesn't get along with Pakistan that great, or China. So you got India eyeing 2 new sites to expand strategic oil reserves, but then you also got China reaffirming sovereignty over disputed region and rejects India's renaming bid. So you got like 2 ends of the continent there with the same players fighting for resources or trying to, redraw the map in their favor. And then
the whole border zone up there, that high altitude war has been going on for what? How many decades now?
Forever. They get out there and
4 decades at least. They don't really fight. It's just too cold, and they really don't want to take the
Commit.
attention and like really get it. It's been that like line has just been there, and they make it in the news. They make it. As a matter of fact, when I was traveling to India, I was way up in Leh and Himachal Pradesh, super far north up, and some of those guys were coming back and from the front up there, and they were, just talking, and they were saying that they used chocolate bars because when it froze, it was actually harder than steel. That they used to get extra chocolate bars sent up there, and they would put them in between the bags of the things that they had up there, because the chocolate actually was as strong as steel at like below the 10, 15, 20 below Celsius below, where they were fighting in those conditions. Like they can't fight. It's literally too cold. Even in the summer, it only warms up to like 5 below 0 Celsius, right, which is in the 20s. But in the winter, it gets literally like 30 degrees Fahrenheit below 0, and that chocolate hardens up super hard. And they got these big chocolate bars they used to like put all over the place to stop rounds.
I killed him with the Willy Wonka bar.
I want the big one. I want the 5-pound chocolate bars.
Yeah. No, I wanted to bring this up too, because we've been talking a lot about the air traffic controller and stuff, and it looks like there's a step I missed before it goes AI. Evidently, they want to make sure to, totally put a bad name or besmirch human air traffic controlling, in my opinion, by this. So the Federal Aviation Administration reached historic hiring levels for air traffic controllers through its campaign to target gamers, which seems like the most asinine idea I've ever heard. Not because they don't have the skill, but if you've ever played these games, you'll know that you have repeated death. There's no consequence, right? So you just do it and you do it and you do it. And if you make a mistake, it's whatever. You restart, you just do it again. It's no big deal. So I'm not really too up on this idea that, you got a hiring campaign to get a bunch of gamers in there to control the dots on the screen, which inevitably are going to be, mistakes and tragedies, which will, force them to say, hey, you know what?
Go further down into that, because I remember I found an article, maybe it was tagged to that, about they're trying to move air traffic controllers out of the tower into other buildings far away and use video feeds and AI to help them do the air traffic controlling. So it doesn't even have to be on site. And they were in there like, well, maybe your next command will come from a Hindi speaking accent in English, because that air traffic control won't be at your area. It'll be like our outsourced, AI call centers and data call centers right now.
$144,000 a year.
Different country, because the labor was cheaper and they can still do that. And I remember I read that article just this morning.
Hello, I am Robert. I will be helping you with your flight. I'm just joking.
Damn, dude, that was fluent, dude.
They call me all day long. But yeah, no, I was just talking about this, and then here we have Homeland Security paid $464 million for airplanes, and then they parked them. Why wouldn't they be using them? It seems like they're waiting for a period of tragedy before they bust out all their resources. Say, look, we told you.
Well, wait, you got to go deeper in that article. Like, why are they have to give an excuse, however far-fetched this excuse is. Has to be some excuse. Why?
Let's see.
An enormous price tag. Aircraft, luxury business jets. Okay, the other 7 are Boeing 737 passenger jets. But why are they parking them? That's the question.
I don't know, but they could just loan or lease them to their friends, according to Kash Patel.
You got to take a lot. I watched some, jet selling videos on people with luxury and money, and really how they bargain for jets. They're going, "What's your budget?" 25 million. Like if they hear something like 5 million, like you're in the wrong place, bro.
And then think about that. They make a point in here that they're outsourcing to the other airlines the deportation process when they have 464 million airplanes parked. I mean, not 464 million airplanes, but dollars worth of airplanes. Excuse me.
Yeah, because realistically, when it gets to a point above like a jetliner or something, a Gulfstream at a certain level, they're like, that's beyond what people use. That's for like businesses that are taking, governments that are working, and you're in that league right there of that kind of pricing on those jets. That's for something very large on commercial level, not personal.
I just wanted to point this one out. This one just shows that, we're not the only ones slicing up Africa. When I was mentioning that trilateral slice up of the world, it seems in every scenario that they think of, whether it's the Chinese version or anybody else's, they're going to be exploiting Africa.
I saw Zambia was putting up another power plant to electrify 250,000 homes across Zambia starting right now. And I was thinking, Zambia? What is this whole electrification project in Zambia? They just get it to it in 2026? Like they couldn't have done it in 1996? Like, really? They waited all this time?
Well, this shows me that there's going to be a much more regional and proxy wars happening there in Africa, because this is 75 flights by military and military linked aircraft between 25 and 26. Right? So they're working on it. They're setting up stuff just like China's. China's all over Africa, setting up resources, infrastructure, and future plans.
Well, think about the recruiting base for those groups that would fight against national interests coming in to take their resources, whether it be Russia, whether it be China. They're all up in Europe. They've all gone away. Like the recruiting base for them to actually bring people back in as a resistance force, they're gone. So it's easy to take out the smaller groups now because there's nothing to refill. Once they're gone, they're kind of gone, evaporated out, because so many, 20 million men have left that area. So it's just not, the vacuum is not going to get filled. So they're going around now strategically cutting off the heads of Medusa here until it's free from that. And those people up in Europe, they're not coming back. They're not coming back. That's
Why
a one-way
they steps? Did
But
they
the
make
Islamization of what you're talking about, if you're going to Islamify all the way from Pakistan through Saudi Arabia up into Europe and have it as a bloc, you'd want the bloc in Europe to be Islamic as well. So perhaps
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
was the plan, is to take all the people that would resist the colonization of Africa or recolonization, send them to Europe where they could be used as a Islamic force to take that area and recreate it into an Islamic area. And then it could be one combined area with Europe and the Middle East, say like as they stretch into India, as one new zone, as we've seen in the those new maps of the 10 areas. What was that from the Club of Rome, 1972 maps? We've talked about that on our show.
Yeah, the 10 kingdoms.
10 kingdoms, that's right. Yeah, and right as this is the one I'd sent you earlier, and I didn't get to it last week, but Chevron reporting net income with 12 billion, a 400% increase year over year. So you're telling me that's legal? That price gouging on the American people. I could see if they're if they 25%, 50% profit. I understand oil prices are up and saying, I could even accept a doubling begrudgingly, like they doubled their profits. Okay, but a 4x increase in profits, somebody's that we're being price gouged and they're allowed to get away with this. There's no other way to look. This is just blatant theft. Along with the inflation through our own government of printing money. That's blatant theft every year. They get you accept 2%.
400% doesn't seem reasonable in any situation.
Ransom, I'd sent a blowout of that slide, and this is all our, if you can find another, I actually captured that slide and enlarged it, cleaned it up as a standalone.
I might have loaded the wrong one. Hold on, let me load the other one then.
Because these are what our liabilities are versus our revenues coming in for America. And if you look at this, it's completely skewed. Like there's no way we can continue forward at all with this. There's a $334 billion income and we spent $766 billion. So there's a deficit of $433 billion in 1 month. 1 month. And that is going to continue to expand. By next month, it could be half a trillion. This can't go on. Like they're really at the breaking point. There's no way we can any longer continue this system. And I think everybody knows that. Like this is only for July of this year, by the way. It's not for year on year and anything. It's just for July. So left is the receipts, like how much money's coming in, taxes, tariffs, all that stuff. Blue is what's going out in terms of like Medicare, Social Security, national defense, interest is at 104 billion. I mean, shoot, Medicaid and Social Security are just barely ahead of that. And how quickly will the interest go ahead and override even Social Security and Medicaid. At some point, we're already past the straw that broke the camel's back. Like the camel's collapsing at the moment. And you look at this with a straight face, it just can't be. It can't. There's no way that this can logically continue. Like, where are we going to get all the money? That green means American people paying more. They can't squeeze any more tax. Everybody's at the edge anyway with the food prices, cost of living increases, insurance up, rent up, everything's up. Like, where you cause social chaos if they try to raise taxes any further. Like, we're at the pinch point, Ransom. We're at a rock and hard place. There's no way to get out of this. I just don't see it.
No, I think that was the plan, man. We've been talking about the greatest transformation of wealth since Obama went into office. And it's just like when he went out, it just continued along its path, and we're continuing to do that now. Now there's a bunch of other triggers that they can blame it on and continually create new situations where the markets go up and down, allowing them to bet on the winning times and the losing times.
Then you notice that's not a free market, is it?
No.
What kind of market is that?
Crony capitalism, communism.
Yeah.
By another name.
With pretty trinkets so you don't complain. Wonder how many more pretty trinkets we'll get. Oh, universal basic income will be the next one. Don't worry about all that inflation. We'll give you free money, man. Just hold on for another couple years or another year so you don't riot and get too nasty with us. So anyway, thanks for joining us tonight. Civilization Cycle podcast, live radio broadcast, 10 p.m. to midnight every Thursday. Sign up for the newsletter, and we're going to send you some bullet points of the things we talked about tonight. I probably try to put a couple slides of the week in there, some commentary, the bullet points. It's just a one-pager, simple. I like to keep it simple, man. Everything's gotten so complicated to these days. Make it simple. You got the slides. You can scroll through. You got the bullet points. Okay. Oh, that was easy. It's like under a 5-minute read. And we keep all your data to ourselves. We don't get anything. Just we control it. Sign up for the newsletter. We'll get you the bullet points. Also, if you like the content tonight, support us over at buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle, or click on the links for our sponsors tonight, Perform Light, and also Alpha Vedic with the Digest, Elevated Digest. 2 great products, or Illuminated, excuse me. I keep mixing everything up here. My brain's foggy for the day. But think about all these great things that we have going on for, trying to get the mind, the body, and the gut biome in balance. Because you saw those articles we talked about. They show that an imbalance in the gut right there is going to tweak your mood, and you'll have different, thought patterns, behavior patterns, energy patterns. So if you can get that all more in alignment again, those things should, come back in more alignment as well. So those links are all in the description box below tonight's show. I do appreciate your valuable time. Thanks for sticking with us. We do read the comments. Please add some comments on top of our comments.